Hi, everyone. My name is Lynette Malone, and I'm the founder of the Astrology Collective. And I'm about to introduce you to the awesome and very dynamic Christina Richter, who is going to be conducting beginners classes on our website on how to use astrology to understand your cycles of health and well-being. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Lynette. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. All right. So to introduce you to Christina, Christina is both a consulting astrologer and a medical astrologer, an Ayurvedic lifestyle practitioner and energetic healer. And she was a nurse for 30 years. So she has been in the healing professions in different modalities all of her adult life, basically. Yes. She runs a thriving practice in her home in sunny Hawke's Bay, New Zealand, and has clients from all over the world. Christina is also an astrology teacher and an author of books on medical and holistic health, medical astrology, get that right, and holistic health. Now, I'm going to put a little picture of your books up while we just talk about that for a second. Just have to work out how to actually use a computer. Share screen.
You go to
I think that's
share.
Right. Right, brilliant. Okay, now I would hold up Christina's books. I am getting paper copies, but at the moment I haven't got them yet, but I have both of these on Kindle. So I thought I'd show them to you. And if you're interested in buying them, they're very cheap on Kindle, about $10 each. And once you do that, you'll want to get a paper copy as well. Brilliant books. Okay, her two books, Learn to Self-Heal, A Personal and Practical Approach Towards Wholeness, Christina wrote in 2018, followed in 2020 by Your Astrological Health, which went to #1 on Amazon in April 2021, and a year later still sits near the top on the best-selling book list. And when you read it, you'll understand why.
That's in Kindle. That's in Kindle.
Right.
People tend to love the Kindle.
Yeah, well, I love the Kindle too. I mean, I buy a lot of books on Kindle, and then the ones I really love, I then get a paper copy. As you can see, I've got lots of books. So yeah, yours is going to be amongst them. Right. In her books, Christina draws together material from astrology, Ayurveda, spiritual health like aromatherapy, Bowen therapy, massage, and meditation. Christina's books are written simply, but full of information and useful for both beginner and advanced astrologers, as well as health practitioners. And I'll just read you one quick review from one of them, because Christina has so many fabulous reviews on the Amazon Kindle site where you can buy them. But we will be selling the paper copies here later on as well. Okay, so this review says, I am a complete beginner when it comes to astrology, but I'm fascinated by how the information relating to our astrology chart can guide us in our everyday lives. Before finding this book, I didn't realize it encompassed health-related activities as well. So it gives you practical advice as well. This is simple to follow and worded in an easy to read fashion with helpful advice. Oh, actually, I've got two. Another customer wrote, there's simple language in this book, meaning a beginner or someone with experience can enjoy the resources, and it will allow you to self-manage your health through the stars. Each sign is followed by detailed case studies and remedies. And I really like that, because if you're using astrology, you want to see how it worked for other people, and that gives you some perspective and actual remedies. Well, that's brilliant. It's not just theory then. Okay, with her career background as an astrologer, author, teacher, and registered nurse, it gives her the professional and expert language to help you learn about this fascinating subject. And I'd like to say that too. It's in a style that I believe in. Everything should be written in a way that complex subjects can be made simple and everybody can understand them, as we should. Okay.
You don't need to be an astrologer to read my books.
Yeah. No, you don't. Actually,
most people aren't, and they can follow everything very easily.
I like that. And that makes it quite a good introduction to astrology as well. I mean, if you're interested in both subjects, then you can kind of think like, oh, this is actually quite simple. I've got a handle on that, because you go through the signs and what the issues can be for each sign. So yeah, so it works really well. Okay, Christina, we're very fortunate to have you as one of the teachers on the Astrology Collective, one of the very first teachers for our very first year. And Christina's going to be teaching an introductory 8-week course on medical astrology. So if you already know a lot of astrology, you will still get something out of this course. And if you know no astrology, apart from the very basics, then you will love this course. And if you know no astrology at all, but you think, wow, I'd like to do that, you can always do Zane's absolute beginner course beforehand, which he is starting in March. And he'll probably run it a few times over the year if we get enough people interested. So that will give you the foundation to do other courses like Christina's. Oh, excuse me, losing my voice. Christina has a long history in the medical profession. She was a nurse for 35 years I've got here, I see. Just looking over my notes, it wasn't 30, it was 35. That's a long time. And is also a highly trained in Ayurvedic medicine, which she studied in both India and Australia. Christina also understands the body as an energy system and works with chakras as part of a holistic healing approach. Okay. Right. Well, I think it's time we asked you some questions, Christina, rather than me just rambling on. So welcome, Christina, nurse, Ayurvedic practitioner, author, consultant, and teacher. Everything you do seems to be embedded in a philosophy and practice of caring for others, in helping others to heal. I'd love to hear a bit about yourself and what attracted you or led you to the caring professions.
Well, when I was young, I was the eldest in my family, and my father remarried a Polynesian lady when I was 4. So I kind of went into a huge extended family, and I was always the one that was looking after all the kids, all those kinds of things. And I went and I applied for nursing at 17, but at the time I got knocked back, and she said that I was too young to go nursing.
Oh.
Nursing was something that was always, I had always been attracted to. And when I do have a North Node in Virgo, I have Hygeia on my ascendant. So these are all very strong, North Node in the 12th as well. So they're all very strong aspects towards nursing and the caring professions. Although when I went nursing, I didn't know that at the time. So I met this lady when I was my 23rd year. And it's interesting how you meet people at the right time. She was a 40-year-old and she had just been doing her third year of being a student nurse in the days when we still had student nurses. And she said to me, look, go and apply as a mature age student, because I had given up on the idea of being a nurse. So I did. And they accepted me, and I was in the last group in Sydney that was trained in the hospitals. After that, they all went.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I remember those days when nurses were still trained in the hospital, and you really had a lot of hands-on experience that way.
There is a lot of hands-on. There's more hands-on than theory. But still, so, you know, I went through my process of doing all the levels, and so that's how I started. I went in at 23.
Fabulous. That's really good. So that stayed with you.
A lot older than most, but I think in many ways it served me better.
Yeah. And just a question going back, it's out of curiosity. What size was your large extended family? How many siblings did you have, and where did you come in the order of that?
I was the eldest.
Oh, okay. So did that leave you with a strong sense of responsibility towards your siblings?
Strong sense of strong sense of responsibility towards the siblings. I do have, for those who know a bit of astrology, I have Saturn in Capricorn on my IC. So
okay.
A real strong sense of responsibilities around family. And so that was quite evident in my childhood.
Yep. That does explain a few things. Okay. Just looking for my next question now. All right. you're an astrologer and teach astrology as well.
Yes.
How long have you been interested in astrology and what brought you there?
Well, God bless my stepmother. She used to read her astrology signs in the paper every day. And when I was young, I used to see this, not really understood what I was seeing. When I finished my nursing, I was looking to do something else to sort of keep my mind stimulated, as well, the fact that I was nursing every day. And I taught myself basically level 1 astrology in the days when we had no computers. Then I decided to do a long distance education course through Stotts College in Melbourne of that time. And I was sending away in the mail my assignments and getting the assignments back. Everything out was long-handed, So I did really, really well. He actually wanted me to come down to Melbourne. He wanted me to teach him. He wanted me to be one of his students. And I just said at the time it wasn't doable. I lived in Sydney. And then I was going overseas. I came across Ayurveda. Then I came back to Sydney, and I'd done the introductory, and I was all ready to do my Ayurvedic studies, and they cancelled it for 1 year. So learning at that time that I was beginning to be a lot more self-aware, I stopped and I thought, well, what am I meant to be doing now? If it's not Ayurveda, what am I meant to be doing? And one of the teachers at the college where I was training was an astrologer, and she was taking on private students. So I approached her and I said that I had done level 1 astrology. Would she include me in her group? And so for all those who would know her, her name was Parampara, and she taught everyone in Sydney. Like if you're from Sydney, you would know Parampara. So Kelly Sturgis, we were in the same class, and a few other people. But I started, that was when I really got into it, and I did levels 2, 3, and 4 in 1 year. I just got the bug. And that was the end of it.
Right. You obviously fell madly in love with astrology. To mention
it had always attracted me, but I didn't know why. But I think I think for me, because I'm actually dyslexic, I think for me, the symbolism was an easy way for me to learn.
Yeah. Right.
And
so it was a language.
That was one of the advantages.
Okay. That's interesting. So apart from your teacher, what other astrologers had a great influence on you?
Maggie Kerr, without a shadow of a doubt. Do you know Maggie?
Not personally, but I'd like to know Maggie. I never hear anything but wonderful things about her, and I have met her at conferences, and she has the most glorious smile, and I've been meaning to write to her actually to see if she wants to give us a talk. So
Maggie from Universal Astrology, she was my inspiration. I went down the road of quite deep psychological astrology with her. Okay. I did study with Susan Miller as well, and Alan Oaken. I did some work with all sorts of people that, came across my path. But Maggie Kerr, every time she was in town and she was holding something, my hand was up. I'm off for the weekend to go see Maggie. I just couldn't get enough.
She does sound amazing. She
amazing.
Did really intensive spiritual studies as well. Like quite a few of the astrologers that you're mentioning are also, they do psychological astrology, but they also do spiritual astrology. They do like Alan Oaken and Maggie Kerr. They've all been I think Maggie went through the Moria Federation many years ago.
Maggie Kerr and Alan Oaken, they developed a course. It was with astrology, looking at the psychological, spiritual aspects of everything. I attended most of those classes. They worked together for quite a few years, developing that and teaching that around the country when I was living in Australia.
And so that's what you were studying, this particular course, or?
No, I was just absorbing knowledge. Yeah. And of course, Alan Oaken is famous for being an esoteric astrologer.
Yeah.
So, and he's now residing in Bali and, you know, living and loving life. So yeah, it's been wonderful. And of course, when I was looking into something else and medical astrology came up at the college to learn, then of course I was in there. Kira Sutherland was my first medical astrology teacher. I did levels 1 and 2 with her, and she's still doing teaching and doing naturopathy and traveling and teaching in Canada as well as Australia, and I'm not too sure about the US. I think she goes for conferences there. Then I've done some workshops with Jane Patrick Riddick. Or is it Riddick Patrick?
Don't know.
I always get her name back to front, and that's my
Jane. I thought you said James. So I don't know this person.
Jane. I've done work with her, and I've also done work with the with the epic Lynn Coiner.
Oh, okay.
Out of USA.
So she's an American medical astrologer.
Yes. I've done quite a few levels. She has a 7-level course, and I'm halfway through her course on medical astrology. I believe that even though you're qualified in your field, you have the responsibility to have continued education, to have the most information that you can then pass on to either students or clients.
I agree. And your background in nursing would really have, you know, I mean, that whole thing of constantly having to retrain. I mean, my background is teaching, and it's the same. We always are doing some training. We're always looking. But even if you're out there as a consulting astrologer, I think not only should you kind of it's good to be in the slipstream of the gestalt of the time, you know, what's being talked about at the time, but you also have to do inner work, I think.
Oh, yes. You can't help but do inner work. I mean, when as part of my process of being an energetic healer, which was a process for 4 years, they get you to look at all your demons, look at all your processes. And it was interesting how I could actually apply it to the astrology. When things happened at certain times through progressions and stuff like that, for me, astrology saved my life. It gave me the understanding on stuff that I could not explain otherwise.
That's interesting. Yeah. I feel the same way. It's just knowing that when you can, I mean, you still have to experience the experience, but when you can put it in a framework and, you know that this too will pass, you know that it's an opportunity for you to learn something or gain something positive, you know, more, even if it's just to gain more compassion for other people that are suffering or whatever. There's always something that you get out of every difficult transit that kind of moves you into being a more complete person in a way.
And of course, if you want to be a healer or a light worker or an astrologer or a therapist, the journey you have defines you as a practitioner.
That's true. That's true. Right. Oh, which brings me back to my next question. It was about the fact that you were a nurse for 35 years and 25 years of those were working in the trauma unit. So I was wondering how this experience of trauma shaped who you are and what types of understandings and attitudes that you now have around medical astrology. You know, I suppose we just kind of said that really, but I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that about your
all experience. All I can say is I worked a majority of my time in intensive care. I worked with heart transplants and bypasses and all those kinds of things. When I put my nursing shoes on, I was the nurse, and that's it. Any other spiritual or astrological methodologies or whatever, I could not bring into my daily job because I was a nurse, trained that way. Had to follow the policies and procedures and all the rest of it. But I did note quite a few people would come in with bark flowers or with crystals. And it made me think, even at such an early in my career, it made me think that people have belief systems in a lot of other things. But one of the things astrology, where astrology and nursing does overlap, is the full moon.
Oh, okay.
When there's a full moon, and this is a medical astrology thing, you know, dates back way back to Max Hendel in the 1930s. if not before, actually way back to Hippocrates days. Like he knew, right? When there is a full moon, the body's fluids increase like the tides. Yeah, we are 80% plus water, right? So if you are having surgery, then the blood flow is increased. So there's usually a higher incidence of bleeding after surgery. Okay. Now I put this to the test time and time again, and every time it never failed. So I started to request days away. Like I would request my days off around the full moon, so I wouldn't have to go to work. And talking about people going crazy, not a myth. Not a myth. Whether it was from the anesthetic or whatever, it was not a myth.
I've heard that emergency rooms are full on full moons.
Oh, I know. I did that once. Girlfriend asked me to swap a shift. I was going to do the full moon shift in ED, right? I ran a 10-hour shift from the time I got there to the time I went home. It was a full moon. I think I went through discharge something like 30 to 40 patients that night, because I was in the I was in the area where they would come in, be assessed and go, come in, be assessed and go, that kind of thing. Either go to the ward or they would be discharged. And I must have gone through definitely 30, possibly more.
Big times.
And I swore I would never work a full moon again. So, you know,
not surprising.
In my opinion, it wasn't worth doing the favor for my friend. But anyway.
Okay. Well, back to books. What inspired you to write your books? And are you considering writing another one?
Okay. The first book, Learn to Self-Heal. I was at my uncle's place in Foxton, New Zealand, visiting my dad in Wellington, brought him up to visit his twin brother. And breakfast was on the table and I was lying in bed and I shot up in bed, literally had a eureka moment. And I came to the table and I said, Dad, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be 24 chapters, because it was going to be all sorts of things. Like I had all this information in my head. And then when I started to sort of plan it all out, it was like, this is going to be a very expensive book to print. So I decided to really cut it back. And I thought, what are the things that I know that I can incorporate? And I thought health. So the first part of Learn to Self-Heal is a very mini analogy on the medical astrology, if you know your sun sign, moon sign, and ascendant. And I explained that in the introductory. The second bit is on Ayurveda, where it's got your recipes and how to basically live, because Ayurveda means the science of right living. So it's making right choices around your dosha constitution. And there is a dosha questionnaire in that. Then the third one is using my knowledge that I know on the chakras. Now, you've got many people that have written books on chakras, so I didn't go into it in great depth, but I looked at the chakras coming from the space of when a chakra is not working well, how that relates to your health. So if someone's got a tummy upset, okay, we know that's the third chakra. So it's the issues around the third chakra that they need to clear on a spiritual level, that is connected to the physical. And of course, the great Louise Hay talked a lot about this before she passed, God love her. And then the next section is just section 4, and it talks all about, I've gotten a lot of my colleagues across the world to explain why their modality works, whether it be bark flowers, Gestalt therapy.
That's interesting.
Watsu, which is the combination of shiatsu and water therapy, massage, aromatherapy. It's not, it's like why it works. Like, so it's the mechanics behind it, not just the fact that it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, I thought, oh, I can do another book, because, you know, so I did this one, and this is all on the, like every sign has about 10 to 12 pages. And again, it's the same thing. sun, moon, and ascendant. And Saturn, if you know your Saturn, then you would read from the case study down for the sign. So if your Saturn is in Libra, you would miss the sign profile and go straight to the case study, and the sign profile is only one page, and then the rest of it is related to it. And of course, I'm a big believer in therapy, in treatments or remedies or recommendations. I believe if you go to a therapist, they are there to help you find a conclusion or a close, and choice is the way to go. So the choice is, you know, I talk about how you minimize stress, recommended therapies are everything from aromatherapy, Ayurveda, bark flowers, the chakras, color therapy, crystals, herbs, vitamins, food, minerals, tissue salts, mantras, recommended tips. And you've got a personal section at the back as well of each sign where you can make your own personal notes. And of course, the best thing about this book is at the back, I've got here for the advanced astrologer. And that's all about how I do medical astrology. Like how to go it, how to go
that's
about
interesting.
It. So I look at the elements, I look at aspects, like everything that I'm going to be teaching in depth is in a mini form here.
Okay, so if you're interested in Christina's course, sorry, I talked over you. I was just going to say, so if you're interested in Christina's course, you can get her books on Amazon, and that will give you a really good idea of where she's going with it. Okay, now there's two things I particularly like about your work, and one of them is that your background in nursing embeds you in science. And what you were just saying then is that you look for the reason why things work. Just the fact that they work isn't enough. You have to understand what it is, and that brings it back to science and back to something that's kind of practical and provable, which is a wonderful thing to have. I mean, we know that astrology works, but not everybody does. No. Not everybody's realized this yet, though they will. But to have it kind of embedded in a practice that's to do with the body and such a material, physical thing, and the emotions and the psychology, it's really good. The second thing I like is your capacity to synthesize the Western understandings of health with more traditional Eastern practices. Yes. So I've got two questions around that. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your journey into the Ayurvedic medicine.
Well, Ayurvedic medicine just sort of fell out of the sky for me. I was in India on one of my many trips. I think I've been about 14 times or whatever. I've lost count now. This was all pre-COVID days. I was traveling to India once or twice a year. I was in it for 12 years. That was a Jupiter cycle. So that was my Jupiter thing. But while I was there, a friend of mine asked me if I could be his support person to come off heroin. And I agreed. And I was just the support person, just helping that person get through. But I saw Ayurvedic firsthand. The person was like, and all they used was the grounded up herbs, and gave a lot of curd, which helps to pacify the nervous system. Because when you're withdrawing, it's your nervous system that goes. So the curd is really heavy. So with Ayurveda, they look at what's light, what's heavy, how to counteract those kinds of things. Okay. And just the medicines that they had all ground up in Immortal and Pissa, and I was giving him that. And in a week, he literally went from dark to white. A white version of an Indian, like pale. And I was just so dumbfounded. Yeah. In a week. That when I came back.
Was he very sick?
Oh no, had been an addict for years. And when I came back, I sought out this practice, and I found somewhere where I could study. So I did the beginner's course. Then they were doing the extended course, but I had to wait a year, as I said prior. They didn't do it for a year, and that's when I went full length into astrology again. Yeah. So that's what got me started. And part of my training, I actually went back to India and studied at the Ayurvedic Academy there under Professor Kulkarni, who's known in India as the father of Ayurveda.
Oh, wow. That sounds impressive.
I studied under doctors there as well.
Okay. So even the way in which you got into this type of healing modality was brought on by your caring nature and the fact that you were caring for a friend. It's interesting. It kind of led you along your path of destiny.
Well, it's always the people you meet and the timing that you meet them. And I believe nothing is an accident.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Okay, what's my next question? I'll just check it out.
Check it out.
Oh, okay. That was the next one. Just remember what I'm asking. The second is your understanding of body and health as being part of a greater energy system. Understand you also look at chakras as part of your holistic diagnostic tools. So this is probably a bit of a compound question. Yeah, I'd like to hear a bit about that. And also, would you call yourself a spiritual person? Not sure about that question. I mean, that's a very, everyone's a spiritual person in their own way, but I suppose, do you align that with a particular spiritual practice, or do you sort of have your own, your own developed way of seeing it? And how did you progress from Western style nurse to someone who clears chakras? It's like too many questions at once.
It was nursing that got me into the chakras.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was at the intensive care, working in intensive care, and there was something on the notice board about wound management. And it was 2 days, and the first day was really, really boring. But the second day, in the afternoon, they had a section of somebody coming to talk about aromatherapy, and then a nurse coming to talk about healing touch, which is like Reiki or any other spiritual practice involved the chakras. So that's where I came across it, was in my nursing. And I was really, really intrigued by it. That weekend, they happened to have a weekend course. And the lady who was teaching it could see that I was really keen on it and said to me, look, why don't you come? I said, look, I had the weekend off, but I didn't have the money to pay. She said, don't worry, the money will come. At that time, I was beginning to understand more about universal flow, about asking for what you want, about manifestation. I was sort of in the early years of all of that. I was only, I was only in my 30s then. I'm 61 now. So I was just beginning to understand. I just read the Celestine Prophecy, completely turned my head. Yeah. And that's for my own spiritual philosophy. I believe living your joy gives you good health, gives you peace, gives you purpose, and providing you are a good person to yourself and to others. That's all you need.
I like that. I think you've hit the nail on the head. The two important things. For some of us, it takes a long time to find your joy, or you know what it is, but you have a lot of barriers to believing that you can live it. But
and fear.
When you overcome them, it's amazing. And fear.
Because my whole thing around leaving nursing, that was paying my mortgage, going into a self-employed position where I had no clients, I just moved back to New Zealand, all the rest of it. It's overcoming that fear. I knew I was good at what I was doing. I knew that, but it was like, is it going to pay the rent? So I sort of rang up my partner and I just said, because he was overseas at the time and I was here in Napier, and I just said, just left my job. Situation got at work where it was like, I couldn't be my own person. I felt too restricted. I'm very much a Uranian. And it was just too restricting. I had more freedom in the big intensive cares that we had all over Sydney, where the nurses there, you actually use your initiative and use your brain. Whereas here, it was like you couldn't give a Panadol unless you had a doctor's prescription and stuff like that. It was just very, and I was like, I was just feeling caged in. So I made the break. Yeah. And I said to my partner, he's a hairdresser. I just said like, okay, when you come back, you've got to get a job. We have enough money to look after the rent or the mortgage at that time for about a month. So he came back and got a job straight away. I mean, he's like international hairdresser, like no problems, and now he's got his own business. But that gave me the time to finish my book. It gave me time to rest, because when I first started, I got a message. I started listening to the universe, which is not something I'd ever did before. And the message was, you're exhausted. You have been raising kids since you were 6 years old, and you are exhausted and you need a break. So don't worry about anything. Everything is going to be okay. Get your book finished. So I left in the May. The first book was finished by October. And then I had to look for publishers and all the rest of it. And then things started to kick in. Now I am so busy. So what am I looking at? 5-6 years I've been doing this now. I have now been so busy, it's not funny. But it was the getting over the fear of leaving, because it's like, what's going to take its place? Is this going to be okay? I have found with a lot of people, and I get a lot of clients who come who are at that crossroads, you know. They're at that crossroads of, and of course I had my second Saturn return. So of course your second Saturn return is about you being an authority in your field. So here I am, been there, done that. But it was like, it's that fear. Do I let go of something that is a sure thing to go into something which at the moment is a no thing? And then you need to create that into something that is going to be, way of life where you can live and be happy and live in the real world and pay your bills.
And isn't it a wonderful feeling to finally be doing the thing that you feel most aligned with, and that,
that's my purpose.
In that slipstream. Your purpose. Exactly.
It's my purpose.
Your deeper purpose. And it is a great joy.
It's my passion.
Absolutely.
I wake up every morning knowing that I am doing something that I love to do, and that I'm helping people make positive changes in their lives, one person at a time.
That's fabulous. And that fear, to me, I see that almost like it's the lunar self versus the solar self. I mean, the lunar self is that part of us that just wants security, and we're willing to sacrifice adventure, in order to have that. And that's the bit that can kind of make you stick to where you are. And the solar self is like, it's the hero's journey, and you have to step out into the great unknown. So, at some stage in everyone's life, we're confronted with it. Okay, so moving on. So we're going to meet you primarily as our teacher. And I think my first question around that was, I'm just going to check, but I think it is, what do you consider the two most important things about teaching? Teaching in a way that everybody can understand, because everybody learns differently. And having a rapport with the students, making sure that they are on board. And, this is why as a teacher, I'm actually open to, like the courses I teach are online, but they have access to me. If I find I get a lesson back and say they're having problems with lesson 4, then I will say we may need to have a half-hour chat. When are you free? And that's all inclusive with what I do. So because none of my students pass unless I know that they understand each lesson. So I have a real thing around that, because if you're going to go out and play with people's lives through the astrology, you need to know what you're saying and what you're doing. Yes. And I think sorry, go on. and if somebody doesn't get it, then I find a way for them to understand it. That sounds fabulous. Well, even I'm going to be doing your course, so I have one young girl at the moment up here in New Zealand, and she's having trouble with working out the elements, sort of thing. So I said to her, right, get a pen, get a piece of paper. Okay, now write this down. This is how you do it, right? So I've said to her, now this is how you do it. Now I'm going to give you another example, and I want you to do it exactly the same way.
and see the answer that you come up with. I mean, let's face it, astrology is a complex subject. It's not easy.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
That's why it's a joy to find people who know how to give you the basics in a way that's easy to understand. And then if you want to go deeper, you can, but you don't have to. And you can still come out of that course knowing a lot, knowing what you need to know. So that's amazing.
And I suppose for me, being dyslexic as well, I do like at school, the difficulty for me in learning was really hard. And it wasn't that I couldn't learn. It was the way I was being taught, but no one, because in my day, we didn't have, like if you were dyslexic, you just put in the dumb class.
Yeah. I know. I have a brother with dyslexia.
Yeah, I was in one of those.
I remember that. It was assumed that he just wasn't that clever, whereas in fact he is. And it took him to an adult to realize that he actually was capable of going to uni and doing all these other things.
And that's the same thing with me. I went to university, I studied commerce, I've run ICUs, I've been managers of finance companies, I've had amazing high-powered roles. So as a reflection, I know that it's not because I was dumb at school. It was just that I could not be taught in a way that I could understand.
Yeah.
So I suppose for me, that's been that's a big one with the students for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Really looking forward to having you as a teacher. You sound great. So is there anything else that you want to tell us about the 8-week course that you're going to be running?
No, as we know, it's the 8-week course is I haven't written it yet, but I will. It's funny, I've written the book, so it's like it's not going to be that hard. And I know
I've got a bit of time.
Yeah, I've got plenty of time. I've got a talk coming up tomorrow that I'm hosting, so I need to get that sorted. Plus, I have another course I'm teaching, which finishes in May, and then so I'll have it all ready because I'm very much like that. But I do things with my Saturn on the IC. I'm very organized, prioritized, as much as I am very intuitive with Neptune in the first house. So, I've kind of got the best of both worlds, and it took me a while to realize that it was okay to be one or the other, or do one and flip to the other and use them together. Because, Neptune and Saturn, they don't actually get on that well. But I kind of use my Saturn to do the disciplined hard work. And then when I'm in conversation, I will use my Neptune.
Someone's going to walk past. There goes Zane to get the phone.
Hey, Zane. So I tend to do
run the other way.
A little bit of both. So I've got the platform and I've got the syllabus and I know how that works. But then I'm quite intuitive, and I can actually intuit a lot of things.
That's a fabulous combination. I agree with you. Saturn and Neptune having to do with the. I mean, I have Mercury square my Mars in the 12th in Pisces, and that's sort of like one side's very intuitive, and the other side is kind of more logical and organized, and it's
very
a battle until you work out that you can be one at times and the other at times, and then you also learn how to synthesize the two when necessary. So it's fabulous, but you have to actually learn how to work with it. There's Zane again. I do not know why he's walking past mine.
No matter. It's always good to see Zane.
When I'm giving an interview. But
so I'm really looking forward to starting in June, and also I think it's in March. We haven't got the date yet, or have we? It's in April. I will be doing.
Yeah, we haven't talked about our little segments yet because we hadn't properly organized them yet, but we will be doing. So I think we're talking about potentially the end of March. It could be April because we haven't done it yet, and we've both got a lot to do, so we'll see how that happens.
I think it's April. I think we're doing it when Jupiter and Pisces conjunct. I think that's the day that we're doing it.
Oh, okay.
I've actually got it in my diary. I'll confirm.
Oh, have you? Oh, good. I'm glad you're organized. I better write this down.
I see. Why wouldn't I be organized? So we're going to. So I'm going to be having a little chat with Lynette, and we're going to be talking about the journey of the chakras. I think it's only a half-hour talk or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there might be another one in May around little bit around the benefits of medical astrology, and I might have some stories to tell. So that will lead me into June. So I'm really looking forward to meeting all the new students and having the ongoing lessons and classes. I'm really looking forward to it.
Will begin around the beginning of June. So yeah, brilliant. I think we're done. Are we done? I think we are.
Think so.
Have got any other questions to ask? Did I have something else? Oh, yeah. No, that's it. Good thing. All right. So I just want to say, Christina, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you and hearing a little bit about your life and your trajectory in life and the courses. So I look forward to talking to you again and for us to getting together to do our little segment that we'll be putting on our website.
Thank you, Lynette.
Yes, with a lot of gratitude and gratitude for having met you. In fact, I just want to say thank you in the traditional way. All right.
Thank you.
Over and out. Are we over and out now?
Over and out. Bye.
Over and out.